Panchakapa Turubhyascha Kripasindhivya Vichapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo. When we left off, before I left, wherever I left for, I guess it was for South America, we had been reading from things Prabhupada said about separation. And the original intention was because Kadambakana Swami was leaving or had left, and some of his disciples were asking me how to deal with separation of the Guru. And so we thought we could, rather than answer the question directly, I thought it required a lot of discussion. So I decided, well, let's investigate everything Prabhupada said about separation. Let's read it and discuss it. So that's what we've been doing. And in the last class, we read from Govinda Dasi's book entitled Sandalwood and Roses, I believe is the title. And we read a few paragraphs. We actually read one chapter of her book, which related to Prabhupada going in 1967 to India to recover his health, and possibly he wouldn't recover his health, or possibly he wouldn't be well enough to return. And so there's a lot of feelings of separation, obviously, and that was discussed. So originally, when we were discussing separation, although there were quotes in relation to separation from the Guru, most of them, or many of them, were quotes about separation, what separation is from Krishna. And I prefaced this course by saying this is really far beyond our understanding. At the same time, you can say we need to understand what we don't understand, so to speak. In other words, we need to hear about things which we can't yet understand. And that's okay, as long as we understand that we may not be qualified to understand everything. And feeling that we're not qualified to understand is actually a qualification. Because if we try to understand something for which we're not qualified, then it becomes a problem for our spiritual life. And separation from Krishna, of course, is based on first having love of Krishna. Then there can be intense feelings of separation, and the more intense the love, the more intense the separation. So to understand love of Krishna is difficult for a conditioned soul, because we love everything but Krishna. But still we hear about it, we become purified by hearing about it. And by hearing about it, we should realize we don't really understand what love of Krishna is, which is why these intense feelings of separation are foreign to us. They're not something we experience directly. Although we do experience separation from our spiritual master, and we experience separation from Krishna in a different way, separated by our own anarthas. So it's kind of a, you can say, a willful separation. It's like we've willed the separation from Krishna, and now that we understand what we've done, we feel the separation in terms of remorse for turning our back on Krishna, and we feel the separation in terms of what we have to undergo in material life, the problems, the suffering, and so forth. So we're feeling separation, but it's not the same as what we're reading about. But I don't want to say it's not a form of separation. And I don't want to say it's not purifying. It is. And so what we can say, and which is often a fact, is that we can discuss very high topics, but on different levels. And so we can discuss very high things, but how they apply to us who really don't have those kinds of feelings of separation. But by studying it, it helps us, gives us an idea, a glimpse into the intensity of love of Radha and Krishna. And really, Krishna consciousness is just a celebration of that love between Radha and Krishna. And in fact, chanting japa is just, it's Hare Krishna, it's Radha and Krishna, it's their love expanding, or us tasting that love. So we are used to tasting, generally tasting something directly. There's a word called vicarious. Vicarious in English means you experience pleasure through seeing another person experience pleasure. So that does happen. It's not the primary way we experience pleasure, but if you go to a movie and you see the hero or heroine in the movie experiencing pleasure or difficulty, you tend to experience that through them. So when they fall in love, you experience some way through them that love. Or when they suffer, you experience suffering. So in Krishna consciousness, it's very much like that, that when Radha and Krishna come together and we can do anything to serve them in that relationship, we experience the highest pleasure, much more pleasure than if we directly engaged with Krishna. So Krishna consciousness is that love of Radha and Krishna. And what we're learning from these classes is that that love is enhanced by separation. By being apart, the love grows. So if the love grows by being apart, that means being apart is good. When Radha and Krishna are separated, although it seems as if both Radha and Krishna are suffering, actually their love is growing, and the enjoyment of that love is growing. And that's, Krishna's God, so he doesn't have to be separated, right? It's not like he can't control it. He had to leave Vrindavan to take care of business outside of Vrindavan. That was all part of his Leela, because he knew that by leaving Vrindavan, the love of the residents of Vrindavan would intensify because they'd always be thinking of him. And so he chose to do that. So that we have to understand that. He chose to do that. So you may hear stories of Radharani appearing to almost be dead in separation, or on the way. In other words, it looks like she's dying in separation. And she's not eating, or she's very thin. Seems to be a very pathetic scene. But according to what our acharyas have taught us, that's when Krishna consciousness reaches the highest ecstasy, or the highest point, is in those intense feelings of separation, because that's where the love is the strongest. So that's the basic lesson we're learning. Now, I think we can all understand that. I think that all makes sense. We have the saying, separation in English, maybe you have it in your language, separation makes the heart grow fonder. So, I'm thinking of, I take you for granted when I'm with you, but when I'm separated from you, I don't take you for granted. I'm missing you. I'm thinking more about you. I'm thinking more that I want to be with you. We can understand that, and we can apply the same principle to Radha and Krishna. Now, the problem that we have, and I don't want to make uh, anyone feel like there's something wrong with you if you have this problem, because we all, we don't want to call it a problem, but call it a challenge, that when one is separated from the spiritual master, especially after the spiritual master leaves this world, we do feel separation, but we tend to feel it, at least initially, in, or we can feel it, or many disciples will feel it, not in the way we're discussing, not in the way that Prabhupada has said, that I never felt separated from my spiritual master, in a sense, feeling even closer in separation. Generally, we don't feel that way. And not necessarily because we're not advanced, but it is painful. And as I've said before, the pain is intensified by the chaos or the difficulties that ensue after the spiritual master leaves. Because when the spiritual master is here, the devotees are harmonized, they get along better, they're more inspired. And when he leaves, naturally, that strength of his influence that they had, they don't have now. It's like if you have a mentor, the mentor is telling you how to do everything. When the mentor goes, you don't have that. And so now you have to rely on your own intelligence, your own willpower, your own determination, etc. And that is more difficult. So definitely a disciple will feel that. And obviously, they're not going to be able to see their spiritual master. They're not going to be able to write him. You know, I have just now recently, a devotee just died in Mayapur. It was glorious that he got to Mayapur. He knew he may not live that long. And I was able to see him in Mayapur, and I think on May 3rd or so, or May 1st or something, maybe it's May 3rd, he left his body. So I was the first one to meet that devotee, and as a consequence, I was able to, he was already a devotee, I just helped him. But, you know, he was very close to me. And so now I still have his name on my phone. And I have the name of a few other devotees on my phone, on my WhatsApp, who have left. So I can't call them. So it's obviously it can be a little heavy when you're scrolling down your phone list and you see, oh, there's so-and-so, I can't call them. Obvious difference. So to feel that pain is totally normal, it's natural. And certainly Prabhupada felt it. But especially, at least one of the ways we see Prabhupada felt that pain was because of what happened to the Gaudiya Math, his spiritual master's movement, after Prabhupada left. And Prabhupada saw that things were not going the way they were when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was present, and it caused him a lot of pain. So that is one of the, I think, a common way that we will feel separation when the spiritual master leaves us. Things are different, and it's natural. At the same time, Prabhupada, as we discussed in the last class, is teaching us that Guru never leaves. He's not within three-dimensional space. He's always there. He's in our heart. He always hears us. We associate through instruction. We associate through service. And that is not easy for every devotee to realize or experience. It may take years and years before a devotee adjusts to the passing of his guru and starts to feel the inspiration that he got when his guru was alive, the same kind of inspiration. And I think I could speak for all disciples of Srila Prabhupada that, we had very shortly after Prabhupada left, around 1982, we started, actually after Prabhupada left, the movement kept expanding. I think more book distribution, more devotees joining than ever before, more temples. Up till around 1981, 1982, there started to be some problems with the leadership, particularly the gurus, not leadership in general, but specifically with some of the gurus. And I think we all realized that these kinds of problems were a consequence of Prabhupada not being here, and that these kinds of problems, at least the intensity of these problems, would not have existed in Prabhupada's presence. Of course, no one would have become a guru in Prabhupada's presence, but let's say for the sake of discussion, even if they did become gurus, if Prabhupada were present, it's less likely that there would be problems, and it's less likely there would be problems to the degree that there were. So it reminded us all, oh, Prabhupada is not here. It kind of was like salt on the wound. Prabhupada is not here. There's a kind of chaos going on, a kind of difficulty we're facing that we never faced before. So that's painful. And it's natural, and it's going to happen. And so I think I'm speaking for all devotees. In the pain of Prabhupada's separation, the pain caused by the movement running into difficulties that we sensed or in many cases knew would not exist if Prabhupada were here. We just had this hope against hope. Prabhupada, could you just come back and set this straight? Or many of us would have dreams that Prabhupada was back and ISKCON was the way it used to be, and these problems were solved. I mean, it's natural. I've had many dreams like that where Prabhupada was back, and Prabhupada, you're back. That's amazing. And I think it's out of the desire that he come and straighten the things out. And of course, we could say, well, he could straighten everything out, or he has potentially in his books. But for whatever reason, we have these difficulties. Maybe we don't understand what he's saying. Maybe we're not applying it as it should be applied. And so it's natural for a disciple to hanker after those days. When I chant Gayatri Mantra, two of the Gayatri mantras are obeisances to Srila Prabhupada, or obeisances to the Guru. And one of the Gayatri mantras, the translation is that we meditate, we become enthused in our meditation by meditating on our Guru, who is always in blissful Krishna consciousness. So I don't know if you've ever seen this video, but there's a video of Prabhupada walking into a temple. For those of you who've seen it, that's a Los Angeles temple. And he has a basket, and he's giving out flowers, and devotees are giving him flowers. And that is in Los Angeles when I was there. So I used to get to be able to do that as well. And if you get a chance to see the video, or if you have seen it, you will see that Prabhupada is very, very peaceful and blissful. Just like he's very happy just to be with his disciples, and the movement's going on. He's walking into a beautiful temple that they purchased. Book distribution is expanding. He's just very, very happy to be with his disciples. So that's a scene which is very much carved in my heart because I was there. And for me, it was special. It was kind of a special mood Prabhupada was in, just happy. Oh, Chaitanya Dasi has found that link. He's amazing. He's better than Google. Google should hire you, Chaitanya Dasi. Why don't you write them a letter? Tell them I said they should hire you. So when I chant my Gayatri mantra, this is what I think about. I think about that pastime, mostly, because it says meditate on your Guru. So that's a practical meditation for me because I was there and I meditate on that. And, or I might meditate on another scene that I was in with Prabhupada. And so it's natural in that meditation to hanker for that day. So I wish I could be there. There are probably songs about that. I wish I could do that again or be there again. Like some times which were special. They were so special and you can't recreate those anymore because that person is no longer here. The mood that that person created, it's difficult. You can kind of create it to some degree, but exactly the same. So that separation is always going to be there, but that maybe lamentation. And as I said, even though Prabhupada said he was always with his guru, he still said he felt separation because of what had happened to the Gaudiya Math in his absence. So I think it's natural. I think we're all going to feel that way. I think I've often said, if you haven't heard me, I said that like sometimes we try not to feel a way because a certain way about something because we think that feeling that way is wrong. But sometimes feeling that way is not wrong. It's just normal, or it's actually the proper sentiment. So I'll give you an example. And this example we can use it in other areas on other topics. So when Prabhupada left, I was a devotee in the San Diego Temple. San Diego Temple is the southernmost city on the west coast of California. Below San Diego is Mexico. If you don't know anything about geography, if you're like, if you don't know U.S. geography, that is, you look at America, you go to the western part, the southern part, on the southern tip is that city called San Diego. It's about 120 miles from Los Angeles. And then maybe 30 miles south of that, you end up in Mexico, a place called Baja, California. Then if you go east from there, about 400 miles, you end up in a city called Phoenix, Arizona. Yeah. And that's where I was when Prabhupada left. And there was a fair going on. We used to have these big state fairs with, you've probably seen them in your country. They have an amusement park, they have exhibitions, hundreds of thousands of people go. They last for a few weeks. So we had legally gotten permission to distribute books, and I was the Sankirtan leader, and I was there. And we knew Prabhupada was leaving sometime. We just didn't know when, but it didn't look like he was recovering. So it wasn't a surprise when he left, although it was painful, but we kind of knew. And so we didn't have cell phones in those days. We would have to go to phone booths, and we would call into the temple periodically to see what was happening. And or maybe we were in a hotel and we had a phone. I can't remember, but it was at that time I was there with like 5 devotees. We had rented some room or some hotel. And that's when I got the call that Prabhupada left. And I then had to tell all the devotees what happened, right? So here's the situation, and it was a little awkward. So that means I was a devotee 7 years, and I would say most of those devotees there were devotees about 3 years, 2 to 3. Maybe one a little longer, maybe one 6 years, but I think most were like 2 or 3. Anyway, we're all young devotees. So we, of course, had read Bhagavad Gita, that verse, na sochiti, na kangchiti. Sochiti means lament. Na sochiti, therefore, means he doesn't lament. And that's what Krishna told Arjuna when Arjuna was lamenting. He said, you're speaking you know, you're telling me you don't want to fight and you're giving me the reasons. At the same time, you're lamenting. So that if you actually have knowledge, at least according to Shastric standard or Vedic standard, if you have knowledge, you won't lament. Knowledge will bring you peace. Knowledge will bring you bliss, because knowledge will connect you with who you are as a spiritual being. So if you supposedly have knowledge, or you're pretending to be learned and you're lamenting, then Krishna's pointing out there's something wrong here, because learned people don't lament. The wise lament, and then, you know, so there are many verses about not lamenting. The other verse, popular verses, the wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. The transcendentalist doesn't lament or hanker. The wise lament neither for the living or the dead. So you've read those verses. You've discussed this. You're well aware that a spiritualist is not supposed to lament for the dead. And so when Prabhupada left, it was a problem, because the devotees obviously felt pain, but they thought, well, I'm not supposed to lament. So they actually didn't know how to feel, because they didn't want to lament if it was wrong. Like, I don't want to go around with a sad face to find that, no, this is not how Prabhupada wants us to feel. And so they were confused. They didn't know how to feel, which sometimes you may have been in a situation also where something's disturbing you, but you're not sure if you're just in Maya and you're disturbed, or maybe you shouldn't be disturbed. Maybe it's normal to be disturbed. So they didn't know. So they asked me, how are we supposed to feel? I mean, we obviously knew how they felt, but they didn't know if that feeling was Krishna conscious or not, which is understandable for a younger devotee, but sad in that they couldn't just allow themselves to feel the pain they felt. And then if you go to the fourth canto of Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada answered that question, and he said, when the spiritual master goes, you should cry. So that's interesting. Isn't that interesting? Like you say, you should not lament, but this is different. This is your spiritual master. This is, you know, like, you shouldn't be attached to anything. And then Bhagavatam says you should be attached to devotees. You should, you know, of course, you should be attached to hearing and chanting. So it was the perfect use of lamentation. Yeah, you should cry. Your spiritual master is gone. You know, go, when your spiritual master is gone, go find some rocks and beat your head on them. Bang, 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 bang. Okay, that's what you should do. Sometimes vicharis use that example. Not that they literally do that, but that's how they feel. But you don't have to take that instruction literally, but you feel this is like you're banging your head on the rock, which is like, I can't, I just like, I'm going crazy here. I want to kill myself type thing. So to lament when the spiritual master goes, or even to feel the pain of separation if the spiritual master is present, but you don't have his association, or he's just visited you and he left, that is natural and it's good. So I don't want this class for you to feel like, okay, I'm just going to be hard-hearted and tell myself my spiritual master is always with me, he's present, and not feel anything, because not feeling any separation, because those feelings of separation are natural. But from everything Prabhupada has said about separation, it becomes clear that he has set the example that both he was feeling separation and both he was always feeling present, his spiritual master present. So like both emotions were going on at the same time. So I want to leave you with that thought. How you do that, I think, is the first part of feeling separation is pretty normal and natural. So you will feel that way. Hold on a second. The lawnmowers are blasting. sometimes, where I live, we all live on 5 acres, 10 acres of land. So there's a lot of times when I'll my studio to record something. Like I'll hit record and then the lawnmowers will go on. I'll be like waiting a month. I only have one more day left in Alachua. Planning what I'm going to record. Everything's ready. Hit record. So, I don't know if that's a lawnmower. You probably can't hear it. But... So anyway, so Prabhupada is demonstrating to us that the emotion of separation is natural. And not only natural, but specifically when the spiritual master leaves, we should cry, we should feel it, we shouldn't hold back. And that's part of how we deal with separation, by grieving, by not holding it in. I think we can apply that even when the spiritual master is present. When we feel separation, we may grieve, we may cry, and that can be very healthy, because we're crying for the Guru and we're meditating on the Guru. At the same time, we have access to the presence of the Guru in a specific way. So no one should feel that being in the presence of my spiritual master and feeling Krishna consciousness is a sign that I'm a weak devotee. It's only a sign that you're weak devotee if after he leaves, you can't continue. That's a sign of weakness. But if after you leave, you feel the pain of his separation, that pain of separation somehow motivates you to serve and think of him, then that's beautiful. It's a natural emotion. There's Prabhupada said, one time Prabhupada said the vapu, the body of the spiritual master, is not as important as the instruction of the spiritual master. And the reason is it's because the instructions are always there. You can just go to them anywhere, anytime. The body is not always there. So you can't get instruction from the body all the time. You can get the instruction and you can't, and plus you don't have the opportunity to serve the body, because the body has to be where you can serve it directly. So he said, of the two, the instructions are more important. And then he said, but if your spiritual master is present, then you should take the opportunity to serve his body, not like you shouldn't, because that's very valuable and it's very inspiring. And we know from all the biographies of how much the devotees got who had Prabhupada's association, got to serve him, how much they learned by hearing every day from Prabhupada and by seeing him. So, we're not going to minimize that at all. And in fact, it seemed that in our trying to adapt to Prabhupada's separation, we kind of erred on the side of, well, the Vani is more important, because that was to console us, because we didn't have the body in the vapu. We didn't have it. So to console ourselves and to get his association, we had to focus on his instructions and his service. And that's how we associated with Prabhupada. And I think for some of us, or perhaps in general, it seemed to minimize the importance of personally associating with the group. Like, oh, that's not important, don't worry about it. I believe in the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada was addressing a problem that some devotees have, and they can't work with anybody in ISKCON, they can't get along with anyone in ISKCON. And in cases like that, Prabhupada often offered those devotees to come and travel with him and be in his presence. Or if the devotee was having some difficulty, he offered, not everyone, but specifically leaders, come with me and travel with me. So be with me personally, and then you'll get purified. So Not that Prabhupada was minimizing Vapu entirely, minimizing the association directly with his body. He knew the value of it, and that's why he allowed some devotees to get that personal association. And what is also important to mention is that there's a Vyasa Puja offering written by Tamal Krishna Maharaj. I'm trying to think when it might have been. It might have been most likely in the late 90s. Maybe there's a book of all his offerings. It's an interesting offering. If you want to find it, if you're interested in it, I'll tell you what he wrote about. You can see if you're interested. He took this idea, but I was explaining that there is tremendous emphasis on the Vani, the instruction of the Guru. And then he wrote a whole offering about how powerful the personal association of Prabhupada was, and that we should never minimize the value of personal association with the Guru. So he was balancing it out. And it's a beautiful offering, and I think, we need to balance it out because it is true. The personal association with the spiritual master is very powerful. The personal association of any elevated devotee is very powerful. At the same time, the instructions that the spiritual master gives personally, or the instructions that you hear later, they're the same instruction and they have the same power, provided that we are able to follow those instructions or apply those instructions. So if we are separated from our spiritual master, if we miss our spiritual master, if we miss devotees that are dear to us, that's normal. That's normal, it's natural, and it's actually good. It's good if that causes us to want to be with them, want to contact them, want to hear from them, think of them. Because if we're thinking of a devotee, if we're thinking of someone who's given their life to Krishna, that thinking is purifying. I have two stories about that. There's once Prabhupada was laughing, and nobody knew why. They asked him, "Why are you laughing?" He said, "I had this god brother. I'm thinking of him. He was very funny. I can't remember specifically what was funny about him, but he had this god brother who was very, very funny." And Prabhupada said, "I'm thinking about him and I'm laughing and I'm becoming purified by thinking about him." So just thinking about someone who's engaged in devotional service is purifying, right? Even if we can't be with them and we feel separation. As we said, you will be thinking of them in separation. And there's another beautiful story. There was once a court case against the devotees. I think they were trying to restrict their activities on the streets of New York, or maybe even stop them from chanting on the street or from distributing books. And one devotee had to testify. And he was quite nervous. I'm not sure what the case was about, and I'm not sure why he was so nervous, but he was very nervous about testifying. And in testifying, he had to talk about, or maybe he was asked, well, which devotees were with you? And he said, well, Bhartaraj Prabhu was with us, Rukmini was with us, Vaikuntanath was with us, Sharadiya was with us, Jayadvaita Swami was with us, Yogeshwar Prabhu was with us, Rupanuga was. He was going down the list of all the devotees in New York who were with him. And later he said that as he was mentioning the devotees and thinking about those devotees, his anxiety and fear went away just by thinking about the devotees. So, my dear devotees, if we miss another devotee and we're thinking about how much we miss that devotee, that's very purifying. It's good. So as I said before, The only problem would be in feeling like, well, without that devotee, I can't go on, I can't do anything. No, but that devotee has helped you in so many ways. He or she has given you guidance. He or she has given you so many good instructions to follow. So then if you say, I can't follow without their personal presence, that becomes a problem. But to miss them, to feel their separation, it's not a problem. Indeed, it could be something beneficial. That was quite a long introduction, wasn't it? Yeah. That was kind of not only an introduction, that was for those of you who hadn't attended the classes, which must have started in, well, January, right? Maybe, at least, or maybe before that. If you weren't there for those classes, there must have been already 6, 7, right? 8, 9 or so classes. That's kind of a summary, and that in a sense was, we wanted to get to this kind of conclusion to help particularly the disciples of Kudavakanana Swami in dealing with the separation from their guru, and also help everyone, balance how to deal with the realities that we can't always be with our spiritual master, or we can't always be with the devotees we love. That's kind of why, one of the reasons I wanted to do the retreats in India, so all the devotees can be together. And it's not just a week at the retreat, we'll be a week or more in Vrindavan, a week or more in Mayapur. And just to have that association, those special memories and realizations, and become attached to one another. As I said, the Bhagavatam interestingly says that things of this world are detrimental, but attachment to a devotee is liberated. You may know this verse. It's an interesting verse since my name is Mahatma, but it says, Mahat Seva Dwaram Ahur Vimukti Tamo Dwaram Yoshita Samisana. So this verse says, Mahat Seva. Seva means to serve, and Mahat means the great soul. So Mahat and Mahatma. It's this another way of saying Mahatma is to say Mahat, those who are great. And Mahatma means great soul. So Mahat Sevam or Mahatma Sevam. Mahat Sevam Dwaram. Dwaram means gate, doorway. It means path. And sometimes if you're in India, you might see this door like path. Something has a name for it. Swargadwar, Swargadwar, the door to heaven. Swarga is heaven. Swargadwar, door to heaven. So Mahatsevam Dwaram Ahu, or it is said, or it is heard, by who? By those who know. Mahatsevam Dwaram Ahu Vimuktes. To serve the Mahatmas is the door to liberation. And you have this word Duratma, which is the opposite of Mahatma. The Mahatma means great soul. Duratma means bad soul. So the door to going up is opened up by serving the great souls, and the door to going down is opened up by serving the bad souls. And so becoming attached to someone who's a devotee will imply some service at some point. And even glorifying them as a service, and remembering them as a service. Remembering their kirtan or their class, or the wonderful service they've done, or the wonderful things they've said to you. That's all perfect. We should become attached to those kinds of devotees. We want to become attached attached. There's the verse. Yeah. And it describes the qualities of the Mahatmas in that verse. They're peaceful, equipoised, friends to everyone. Yes. So it's not that feeling separation, thinking of the devotee, wanting their association is bad. It's good. It's purifying. We should become attached to the devotee. As I said, it's just that if we can't go on without that association, that means we haven't really taken that association in the best way, or the right way, or the way ultimately we should. A lot of times devotees will ask me and ask other the disciples of Prabhupada who are still serving, will say, oh, you've been serving for 50 years. How do you do that? It's so admirable. There's so many obstacles on the path, and you haven't given into those obstacles. And I think the simple answer is it's the devotee's attachment to Prabhupada, that Prabhupada has given something so valuable and made it so clear how to achieve it, that to give it up would be the ultimate act of foolishness, even if it's difficult, even if it's troublesome, even if it's challenging at times, even if there are temptations at times to give it up, even if we're at times we lose our desire. But how can we give up something that valuable? Especially understanding, especially knowing the difficulties that Prabhupada went through to give it to us. How could we throw it out the window? It's so that can give us strength. The person who's helped us has given us so much. Now, how could I not follow that after all they've given? That's what keeps us going, and that's what can keep you going. And I think it's good. At least I find it helpful thinking that way, because it makes me feel foolish not to take what I've been given and put it into my life, practice it. What kind of fool would I be? Even though my spiritual master is not here, but he's drawn the path very clearly. He's given me what I need to traverse the path. What kind of fool would I be to give into anything else other than what he's given me, to remain a fool? What kind of fool would I be to remain a fool? That makes sense? Yeah. Because he's giving me knowledge. I'm foolish. I didn't know I was entangled, and I didn't know, even if I did know, I knew I was being pushed around by this world, but I didn't know how to stop that. And I wasn't clear what else there is beyond this world. And he has come and showed me what's beyond, and showed me how to get there, and showed me how not to be pushed around by this world. And how could I be so foolish as to not take that up? So that's how we remain attached to Srila Prabhupada. That's how we remain attached to our spiritual master and close to our spiritual master, by always embracing the reality that my life is so much enriched by their instructions. How could I ignore those instructions? Sometimes we can't always execute the instruction of the spiritual master perfectly the way we'd like to. We may be traveling and our schedule is off. We may be ill and we have to rest more. We can't rise early. We may be busy and we are unable to do our service, or unable to do it properly, or unable to spend enough time with our sadhana and so forth. And we feel bad. And that feeling bad, it's good, because we're feeling bad that, oh, my guru has given me so many jewels. And today I wasn't unable to take many of the jewels he's given me and use them. Today I only took one jewel, or I took it in the wrong way, or whatever. So feeling bad that I can't do that it's very purifying, because it draws us closer to Prabhupada, or closer to our spiritual master. So it's, if the separation from the Guru makes you feel gratitude towards the Guru, it's very good. If separation from Guru makes you more inspired to come closer to him and hopefully her. The her is on both, right? If it inspires you to come closer, to be a better devotee and so forth, that separation is very good. That's very helpful. But if that separation causes you to drift away and say, well, I can't do it without that association, then always remember, but you do have that association, because the association is not limited to the body. The association is not three-dimensional. Prabhupada told the devotee that the relationship is eternal. I know it's in your heart. I will know it always. So we may not be able to see that, but that does exist. Like, so many things we can't see that exist beyond just the three dimensions that we can experience. Hare Krishna. So I am thinking to look and see if there's any questions or comments, or ask you if you'd like to ask any at this point, and see where that takes us before we read. Because what we're going to read, as far as I know, is not, I think we've already read about separation from Guru. It's going to be like Mahaprabhu's feelings of separation and Raja's feelings of separation. Okay, we have two leftover questions. Keep them up, and let's have them. Do you know, you know that I heard that Bhaktisiddhanta liked to cook khichdi at night and then let it sit and eat it in the morning, because the spices became more flavorful, more merged in the khichdi when they sit overnight. Did you know that? So maybe these questions are even more spicy now. They've been sitting for a weekend. Vishwas asked this question on Friday. So here's his question. The problem is when I look at my chat, I have to turn my head like this. I'll pick up my phone. So, Chaitanya Dasi, can you read the question?
Yes, Gurudev. So the first question is from Viswas Prabhu. I hope I got that correct. Where love is deeper, feeling of separation is stronger. Why did you love Prabhupada so intensely?
Because he was intensely lovable. I mean, how could you not love someone who's come to take you out of the material world? Like nobody, people did things for me. People were nice to me, but naturally you love your family because they do so much for you. But the person who's taking you out of the material world forever, naturally that's the person you have such intense love for. And I had mentioned this several times, that when I first met Prabhupada, there was very distinct realization that it was, you could say, personal. Although Prabhupada was coming to take all of us back to Godhead, there was a distinct feeling that he's coming to take me back to God. This is the person who is going to take me back to Godhead. It was like a major, it was quite an emotional experience, because obviously I never met anybody who was going to take me back to Godhead, who had come here. And so I met Prabhupada in 1969. in December, which was 3 years, 66, 67, 68. No, it was 4 years. 67, 68. That was 4 years and a few months after he came. But I think also why the fact that the movement had not developed much made it even more rare, because there were only a few hundred devotees, of which I was one. So I'm thinking this person is coming to take me back to Godhead, but right now there's only a few hundred that he's taking, so it's extremely rare. So the emotion of that experience was intensified by the rarity of Krishna consciousness. And I had just begun Krishna consciousness in November. Oh my God. I had just learned about Krishna consciousness 2 weeks and 2 months before I met Prabhupada. So it was a unique experience, because I didn't fully understand who Prabhupada was. I was still very conditioned and just beginning to understand Krishna consciousness. And I didn't yet understand who Prabhupada was fully. So I think I kind of understood who he was fully when I saw him. It's like, oh, okay, I get it. This is not an ordinary person. This person, just by their presence, can completely change my heart. And so Prabhupada was changing us, changing our lives dramatically. And through all his lectures, morning walks, conversations, and his books, we felt like he was just giving, with the desire that we become Krishna conscious, with the desire that we go back to Godhead. And we felt this personally, that his life was dedicated, everything he did in his life was dedicated to getting us out of the material world. And that he would go to any end to do that. He would never give up on it. He would never give up on us. He answered every single letter. Sometimes the buddies are telling me they sent me letters that I didn't answer. And I feel really bad. I missed a letter. Prabhupada answered everything. I'm starting to find out that I'm not getting all the sadhana reports. If you haven't received an answer from me for sadhana report, send it again to Mahat, not sadhana report at AOL, but Mahat at AOL.com, and tell me I sent it, the sadhana report, and I didn't get it. I'm trying to figure out why. But Prabhupada answered every single letter, every single problem he would address. He never ignored anybody. So I would say to you, Vishwas, if you met Prabhupada, you would love him in the same way we all love him. And that we can extend that further and say, now meet Prabhupada through his biographies, through his books, through his videos, and you will come to love him in the same way. Because you might say, no, but it's my spiritual master that's delivering me. He's here present, he's talking to me. But your spiritual master would not exist as a spiritual master, or even as a devotee if it wasn't for the most likely. I mean, your spiritual master might have gone to India and found a guru. Maybe he was a devotee in his last life. But, we see it as my spiritual master exists because of Prabhupada. So if I think my spiritual master is a great gift, who gave you that gift? It was Prabhupada. He gave it to you. And the fact that your spiritual master can help you is because Prabhupada is there helping him. And he's just passing on what he's getting from Prabhupada to you. So, you all are intimately connected with Prabhupada. You could not exist without him. Even if you think, oh, my guru is everything. I don't know Prabhupada. My guru is everything. That may be, but it's not. It's not. If you examine it, it's not just him alone. It's the whole disciplic succession. But specifically, we know for us, if Prabhupada hadn't come, forget it. I have to write my book about Prabhupada, and I told told you, many of you know that I'm thinking the title will be An Ordinary Person with an Extraordinary Guru, because I just want to make this point that when one takes guidance from someone like Prabhupada, even though one may consider oneself ordinary, one becomes extraordinary. You know, so you see many extraordinary devotees now, and you probably make the assumption that these were like, they were born extraordinary devotees. You know, they became extraordinary because of their association with Prabhupada. They were, you know, obviously leaning towards spirituality, leaning towards finding answers to the real questions. And so they had that tendency. But without meeting Prabhupada, where would those tendencies go? How would they develop? What would they become? And you can see there are many other people, you know, hippies of that time who found gurus and how they lived their lives. And often we'll see that those people and their understanding, it's not the same as those who went to Prabhupada. So therefore, we appreciate the speciality of Prabhupada. And so seeing that, what Prabhupada's association has done to so many of his disciples, not just the most advanced disciples, but to all of them, they're all very special. Then we understand that that can happen to me. It's not like I need some special qualification other than trying to understand as best I can, and trying to apply as best I can his instructions. An ordinary person with an extraordinary spiritual master. So we're all ordinary, and our spiritual masters are extraordinary because they're connected to an extraordinary spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. That's what makes them extraordinary. And if, without that connection, they're just ordinary persons again, with a spiritual inclination. That's all. So Vishwas, if you were there and you had met Prabhupada, you would love him like we loved him. And you can still love him like we love him by appreciating that he's saving you. Prabhupada is saving you, and those who are spiritual masters are helping Prabhupada save you. That's what we're doing. We can't do it on our own. There's no question. Of course, Prabhupada would say the same thing. I'm only doing it by the mercy of my Guru. So that's true also. We're indebted to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. We're indebted to the whole disciplic succession. But specifically for devotees in ISKCON, Prabhupada has taken that vast body of knowledge given by the disciplic succession and kind of refined it for us, Westerners. So it's really being hand-delivered and cooked by Prabhupada for us. Hare Krishna. Okay, next question or comment?
Question from Abhinav Prabhu. Is it generally recommended that Shiksha Guru should be connected to Diksha Guru? Because sometimes the ideologies or perspectives will change if Shiksha Guru is from another Diksha Guru. And in those conditions, whom to follow?
Well, let me start by saying, in theory, that's true. But in practice, it has to be adjusted. For example, if you have a guru, a Diksha Guru, and you want a Siksha Guru, and it's within ISKCON, then your Diksha Guru and Siksha Guru are both trying to represent as best they understand Srila Prabhupada's teachings. If you go outside of ISKCON, then those gurus will be representing other gurus' teachings as well. They may be representing Prabhupada, but they may be representing another guru's teachings. So therefore, you might find some difference there. The difference may not be a problem for you. It may actually be a clarification. The difference is just a clarification, not really a difference, but going perhaps in a broader or a deeper way, or showing more context or historical context to what's being said. But that would tend to be more of a problem. But I would give this caveat this morning. If you're in ISKCON, number one, if you ask someone to be Siksha Guru, you can't expect that that Siksha Guru is now going to listen to every lecture of your Diksha Guru, so he can be aligned with you. And but obviously, if your Diksha Guru is extremely traditional and conservative, and your Siksha Guru is extremely liberal, there will be a difference. But I would find it strange that someone would want a Siksha Guru that's so much different than a Diksha Guru. However, having said that, I have seen that sometimes a devotee has a Diksha Guru and they feel that their life has evolved in a way which is a little bit different from their Diksha Guru. And they relate more to the Siksha Guru. And there will be perhaps some difference in emphasis. Maybe the Diksha Guru is emphasizing more renunciation, brahmachari life, and simplicity. Maybe he's emphasizing more traditional values. Maybe the Siksha Guru is emphasizing more grihastha ashram, living in the world in a practical way. Feeling like maybe there's been too much artificial renunciation. So those things are going to be there because each guru is individual and each guru may tend to focus on specific aspects of Krishna consciousness. But maybe when you took Diksha, you were a fired up brahmachari and your intention was to remain brahmachari your whole life. And you reach the age of 30 and you realize that I don't think I can do this. And you know nothing about grihastha life, you're totally unprepared because your guru didn't really speak much about it. And he really was more focused on ashram life. And now you're looking for a Siksha Guru who's going to be speaking more about grihastha life. So there may be a difference in what they focus on, and maybe even a difference in maybe your Diksha Guru doesn't really value grihastha life very much. He just talks about it in disparaging ways. Well, if you have to get married, then, but get out as soon as you can. Say things like, get in and out as soon as you can. They might say things like that, and you're feeling like, oh, I don't feel that way. I feel like I need it. I don't feel like I'm able to just go in and out, or that would be the proper way to do it. And so you gravitate towards a Siksha Guru who can guide you because you're in a different position now. And those instructions are different. But those are the instructions you need now. And so maybe when you're 65 years old, you want to be Vanaprastha, those instructions to Diksha Guru now are the ones you need more. Not the instruction how to be a good grihastha, because you're kind of winding down. I think that's a practical consideration. And although it is said the Siksha Guru should support the instructions of the Diksha Guru, it would create confusion if he didn't. It's a little different within ISKCON because Prabhupada's the real Siksha, the ultimate Siksha Guru. So we're all trying to unite around Prabhupada. But to practically think that every Diksha Guru in ISKCON is going to be the same, and therefore every Siksha Guru you have would exactly support it, may not. It may not, it's not going to happen. So in choosing a Siksha Guru, you have to be aware of that. This is what the Siksha Guru is speaking about. And it may contradict the teachings of my Diksha Guru, but maybe it's just contextual. Your Diksha Guru is like most of his disciples, or many are brahmacharis, since he's really addressing them, and you understand the context, then if there's a contradiction, so-called, it's not really a problem, because you understand why. Or you understand the nature, you understand the audiences they're addressing. You understand all the factors. And if you understand that, then you need to hear from a Siksha Guru who's speaking in a certain way and that enrich you, then it's not a problem. You just understand that's what you need to hear now. And I've seen it happen all the time. we generally take, or many of us take initiation when we're very young. So, you know, when you're older, you change. Maybe not drastically. Sometimes you change and then you realize that, oh, the instructions of my guru were perfectly fit for me when I was 22 and living in the ashram. But now my life has changed, and therefore I feel like I need a Siksha guru amongst the grihastha. And so that's practical. It makes sense. It's okay. And you'll get some different instructions, but you'll understand why they're different. And as long as your Diksha guru is not complaining, then you should be fine. It's always nice to get their permission. Hope that answered your question. Next question.
Question from Nishtha Bhakti Mataji.
Okay.
Not every devotee is so fortunate to get physical association of a guru. So how do we comprehend this separation?
How do we comprehend? How do we comprehend why they're so unfortunate that they don't get the association with the guru? Or how do we comprehend why that's happening? Maybe I can answer both questions. I think sometimes the devotees are very inspired, extremely inspired by a particular guru. And that guru has so many disciples that the chances of having any kind of personal association are limited or impossible. And probably even more limited and impossible if you're a single woman and they're a sannyasi. And more limited and impossible if you have really, you're not doing any kind of service personally for them or any kind of major service within their zone. So, but they're still extremely inspired by that guru, and they want to take initiation. They want to be in that family. They want to be connected, and they're okay with never getting association. Now, it may come to a point in their life where they see others getting personal association with their groups, and they're like, it'd be nice if I could get with mine, but I can't. So at that point, they may want to accept the Siksha guru to get who can give that personal association. Right? And it's possible that Siksha guru will someday have thousands of disciples and be in the same situation, but at least for now, they can get that association. So I would never say it's like bad karma or a bad choice. It's just the reality that person is preaching, he has more disciples, more responsibilities, and practically you can do so much. And hopefully you were aware of that when you took initiation. Now, maybe when you took initiation, you only had 50 disciples. Now he has 50,000, which is your Jayapataka's disciple. That would be the case. And so in that case, you might think, well, you know, I had his association when I was, you know, when I first took initiation in 1979, but now it's like, I can't get past all the security guards. So that's not due to your impiety or whatever. It's just a fact, and you probably want to seek out an association with the Siksha guru if you feel you need more of that personal association. Now, for those of you who haven't taken initiation, or maybe for those of you who aren't aware, the larger number of disciples your guru has, obviously the less likely for you to get personal association. It's not always the case. Some gurus will give it more often than others, even though they have thousands. But it's something to consider. Obviously, if your guru has 100 disciples, it's more likely you could get some personal guidance than if he has 10,000 disciples. And, I know gurus who have that many disciples, and I think they selectively pick the emails they get to reply to, because and Facebook messages and whatever, because sometimes they reply and sometimes they don't. And I think those disciples, accept that reality. And but just a word of caution that if you're not initiated, and you do choose a guru with lots of disciples, or who potentially might have in the future. Of course, if they potentially have in the future, probably in the future, 10, 20 years from now, you may not need that personal association as much as you need now. But anyway, if that's what you need, that's at least consider that. Or consider also, if you're really inspired by that Diksha Guru, consider also having a Siksha Guru. Now that begs the question, and I don't know if there's any one answer. It begs the question saying, I need personal association, and I'm attracted to this guru who can't give it, but I want to take Diksha from him. So that may beg the question, why? And maybe the answer is, I'm just so inspired, I want to be part of that. But I would just, and I think that's valid, but I would just want to throw out the fact that the two factors, that person can be your Siksha Guru. If you shouldn't give him up just because you're going to take Diksha from someone else to get more personal association. But something to consider, as Prabhupada said, the real essence of Diksha is Siksha. The real essence of the association of the Guru is Siksha. So the person who's giving you the most Siksha is the most important Guru. Now that person's giving you the most Siksha may not be the one you're personally associated with. It may be the one you're hearing from, who you'll never get personal guidance from. So that's fine. I'm not saying one is right or the other. I'm just saying these are different considerations to make. That if I'm getting like tons of personal guidance from someone, why am I thinking of taking Diksha from someone else? If I'm hearing from the Siksha Guru more, and the Siksha Guru has more influence, then logically, naturally, according to Shastra and traditionally, that would be the person who's your Guru. So that's something to consider. That person would not be the person who's your Guru if you feel you're more connected with this other Guru and more inspired and influenced by that other Guru. Then it makes sense. To me, at least, it makes sense. But if it's kind of 50-50, then the person who's giving you the most personal guidance and who has the most influence on you is really the person traditionally who would become your Diksha Guru. Hare Krishna. Next question.
Question from Kavita. What is strong sadhana for a householder?
Strong sadhana is, number one, take your television and throw it out the window. Number two, this is what you have to do to have strong sadhana. Number two, have your phone off as much as possible, especially when you're chanting japa. Number three, don't eat dinner at night like I did every night. If you want to get up early, your main meal should be in the afternoon. The evening should be light or nothing. Your main sadhana as a grihastha to do everything with your life in order to, I'm sweating in this car. This wind blowing machine is like going nonstop. I think it's okay. Yeah. Krishna says, tolerate heat and cold. Sometimes it's difficult, right? No, it's a machine that's cutting trees. Wow, I'm in the right spot, huh? The right time. All right, I'm doing everything. Hare Krishna. Murphy's Law is working. I parked in a quiet spot by the beach under some trees. Yeah. So, most important sadhana, according to our Shastra, the highest sadhana, the best sadhana is japa. Therefore, for Grihastha who's busy, if like japa is all you can do, everything in your life should be arranged to support that time where you can peacefully chant japa. Or as they say in Spanish, cantar yapa, yapa. Japa mala. We're having a joke on it right in Chile. Japa mala. Mala means bead, but mal means bad in Spanish. So we said no mal japa mal. My japa mal. No mal japa mala. No mala japa mala. No bad chanting. Yeah. So that's the main sadhana. And then of course you need an altar where you offer all your food, everything you eat to Krishna. And you're going to offer some flower incense every day. The other two most important things is make sure you're hearing, attending classes, reading Prabhupada's books, and you're getting some association live in person of devotees, at least every week if possible. Or more, yeah. So that's minimal. But that's quite sufficient also. If your rounds are good, everything is good. Just remember that, Kavita. Your rounds are good, everything will be good. But we need a devotee association, and we need to read in order have good japa. I would move to a quieter place, but I think my phone's going to fall over if I try. And it's only 8 more minutes of the sauna that I'm in this car. Okay, I hope that's clear. Next question.
I see that Scarlett has a question. She raised her hand.
Okay, go ahead, Carla.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna. Now I finally can talk because I don't have my talking fasting in talking speech fasting.
Okay, okay.
That's why I'm happy that to ask the question myself. May I ask? There is 2 questions, which is almost the same. The question 1 is it a must to get initiation? And the question 2, I have learned that it's requirement to go to the Shastra school, and because I have learned also that it costs money if you can't live in a temple to do devotional service at the same time, then you have to pay for this school. So that would be a problem for a person like me that I have my limitation, physical limitation. I go with walker, so I have difficulty. So I wonder how to go about it.
Well, I'll answer the second question first. There must be an online, it's called the ISKCON Disciple Course or Bhakti Shastri. There are online versions of courses. So I think there are free online versions of the disciple course. The course there's got to be, because everyone has to take it who wants to be a disciple. Maybe Chaitanya Dasi could help you find out. I never took the course, so I never had to find out, where it is. For Bhakti Shastri, there also might be. I know some devotees in India do courses. That's there. And the answer to your first question is the answer is yes and no. Because no, in the sense that if you're already following all the principles of initiated devotees, then you are initiated in principle. Prabhupada said that your determination to chant 16 rounds and follow the 4 principles is your initiation. And he said, my touch is a formality. So some devotees will say, yes, it's absolutely necessary because you need to be officially connected to the disciplic succession. And that's what Rupa Goswami says, and Prabhupada says in Nectar of Devotion and other places. But there are stories in which people were not initiated and they said they don't feel ready, and Prabhupada said it's okay, you still go back to Godhead. So it is the general tradition that in your progress in Krishna consciousness, if you are following the four principles and chanting 16 rounds, that you would want to do that officially at some point, formalize it publicly, that I'm making this vow to this person. Of course, you have to find a person you trust and you can surrender to. That could be a problem. So if due to some factor, you just feel like I don't have enough trust in anyone but Prabhupada, then that's okay. Just make your commitment to Prabhupada. And I don't want to say you're initiated by Prabhupada, but your as Prabhupada said, your commitment is your real initiation, and everything else is a formality. So I am the first person to never encourage anyone to take initiation who feels some reluctance for one reason or the other, either personal qualification or some other reason. I would never push that because it's when you get initiated, Prabhupada saw it as like, now you're kind of becoming like it's like you're representing Gaudiya Vaishnavism. You're an actual devotee, like formally, this person. So if someone's not initiated and they go, oh, I saw so-and-so and they were, went to the movies, and they went to a restaurant, then they went bowling, then they played miniature golf, and they went to bed at 2 a.m. I didn't see them chant any rounds the next day. It's like, okay, that's what some devotees do. But if the person's initiated, it's like, no, you're initiated. That's not the lifestyle you're committed to. So for someone who's committed to a devotional lifestyle and it's really easy for them to do it, it's like, then there would have to be some other valid reason for them to say no, like I don't trust anybody, I only trust Prabhupada. Or maybe you can find a guru who will just say, I'm initiating you, but really I see your connection is with Prabhupada, and that's where your main fidelity is. And so you actually are initiated, but the direct relationship you have with that guru, it becomes more of a formality, and your real connection is with Prabhupada. That can be done also. So that's a general understanding. It's not like the end of the world if you don't get initiated, as some devotees may make you believe. Right? Like, who knows where you're going, Scarlet, when you die, because you weren't initiated. Could be born as a cockroach in Sweden. Who knows? But if you get initiated, then your guru will come back like, well, why would you're serving Prabhupada? Why would he, just because you weren't ready for official initiation, discard you and throw you to the tigers? No, it's not exactly like that. But it's like when Prabhupada was asked, why do we chant Hare Krishna? He said, because that's what Lord Chaitanya did. So we follow that example. So, there is the tradition that a disciple gets initiated, so we follow that, but we see there are situations where maybe it's not the right time or the best thing for everybody. That's the best I can give you right now. You can chew on at this point. So it's really up to you, having that knowledge. Okay, we have time for one more question, maybe.
Question from Kuldeep.
Okay.
If someone does not feel compatibility and mutual sense of belonging in one disciplic succession, even after associating for a long time, is this appropriate to think of changing the disciplic succession?
You mean like you don't feel comfortable as a Gaudiya Vaishnava and you want to become part of the Sri Sampradaya, or you just don't feel comfortable within ISKCON and you want to go outside, or within ISKCON you don't feel comfortable with one guru community and their disciples and you want to go to another? I'm not sure which one. It sounds like he's saying go to a completely different Sampradaya, but I need clarification. Kuldeep, can you clarify?
He's on Facebook, so maybe the answer will come later.
Okay. Yeah, it would be a different answer. It's more of a personal question. I'd have to maybe just Kuldeep, maybe just write me that question, send it to me, or explain it. Send me a message and explain it to me, so then I can answer.
He answered. He says,
Okay.
other disciplic succession.
Like Sri Sampradaya. Or like, for example, which one? Sai Baba? No, not Sai Baba. Neem Karoli Baba, I would recommend that as my first choice. Who is it, you know?
He says yes, but I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Which,
tell me, okay, cool, Dave, just write me and tell me which one you're thinking of. We'll go from there. And why you're thinking like that. Okay, we're waiting for Goraman, I guess.
Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, he says.
Oh yeah, Sri Vaishnava, yeah. Yeah, let's talk about it. It's not a problem, but I want to know why you feel that way. Because as you know, the goal of Sri Sampradaya is not the worship of Radha and Krishna in Braj. So maybe you're attracted to Vishnu in Vaikuntha, and that's just your eternal relationship, and that's why you're attracted to it. If that's the case, who can stop you? Okay, we will officially end class here. And I will officially have to leave at this point. That's okay. And the rest of you can stay and chant. Hare Krishna to all of you. Nice to see you. We'll see you on Wednesday.
His Grace Mahatma Prabhu ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Glory to Prabhupada. Hare Bol.
Okay, so this morning we can